When traits and the tank trait dropped in August 2021, a lot of tanks benefited from it and became meta from it. However, Primo benefited the most of all, and was the sole reason why it got nerfed immediately upon release. Let's take a look as to why. Primo's one of the most iconic tanks in the game, and is a fan favorite across updates. Very rarely will you see a Brawl Talk posted on YouTube without the brawler in the thumbnail being photoshopped and replaced with elprimo's face. And we all know and love the bad random Primo who takes all 10 gems and jumps into the enemy's spawn. Well, we're not talking about that type of Primo player. We're talking about the Primo player who, back before August 2021, desperately wanted to be able to play Primo in competitive. However, his design had a few main flaws. Speaking of that design, let's take a look at his main attack first. Elprimo's main attack is a barrage of 4 punches that deal decent damage by themselves. Fun fact, and important for this analysis as well, you can actually nullify 2 of those punches by walking into elprimo's hitbox while he's attacking, since his punches originate from outside his hitbox. He also attacks in a very thin straight line, unlike Edgar or Rosa whose attacks have a lot of spread, and his unload speed is longer than those 2 and many other tanks. This makes his main attack very inconsistent and easy to dodge, even at the close ranges he's supposed to be good at. There is a small plus side to his attack, though. Unlike brawlers like Bull or Daryl, he can pierce through enemies with his attack. This is a very niche ability, but it helps in matchups against brawlers like Eve and Nita, where their spawnables don't affect him as much. But Primo's real sauce lies in his super. His super is what ties his entire kit together, and I'll explain why in a bit. But first, a brief description is needed. Primo's super is a flying elbow drop that knocks back enemies and deals damage. Pretty simple, but he's a rare so it makes sense for him. The knockback part is important. In Brawl and many other games, knockback is coded such that the enemy cannot perform any actions while they are being knocked back, making knockback more similar to a stun, but with the added condition that the brawler is airborne and cannot be knocked back further until they are on the ground. This is perfect for Primo. This means that he can super into enemies, and the knockback stun that they experience can't be interrupted by anyone else. In addition, the knockback stun sends enemies flying in a very predictable pattern, so Primo's attack overcomes both its weaknesses. Primo doesn't have to worry about inconsistent damage when the knockback makes it very easy to hit all 4 punches onto the enemy, and aiming against a knocked back brawler is easy because they move in a predictable pattern. This fixes the problems he has with his main attack and creates a game plan for him. Get super, hit super, kill enemy, fall back, rinse, and repeat. But let's go deeper. Many brawlers have supers that fix the weaknesses that their main attacks have, but Primo's super is the thing that makes him a threat. To understand this, first we must understand the concept of pressure ranges. Pressure range is the radius of pressure that a brawler expels whenever they just exist on the map. In other words, how far the pressure ranges depends on how close you'd want to get to the brawler before they can kill you with ease. Usually, marksmen are defined with the highest pressure ranges, having 10 tiles of range, and artillery are defined with having pressure ranges that ignore walls, since their attacks ignore walls. For both of these scenarios respectively, you wouldn't want to be within 10 tiles of the marksman's range, or behind a wall close to the artillery brawler, since they can then easily burst you down. Primo's a tank, however, and tanks have notably low pressure ranges due to their low ranges. The point is, Primo needs a way to increase his pressure range to actually threaten other brawlers. Otherwise, he's just a sitting duck against any marksman. This increase comes in the form of his super. Pressure range is most often defined in terms of an ability's range, and while Primo's main attack reaches about 3 tiles, his super extends to 9. His super's range extends to more than 3 times the range of his main attack, while also ignoring walls, which is huge for his pressure range. This 3 times multiplier is important. If Primo is within 9 tiles of an enemy and gets his super, then the enemy will have to quickly displace themselves to exit that increased pressure range. Since their positioning is disrupted, Primo can capitalize on that by pushing them back down the lane and into spawn. Since Primo is a short-range brawler, this will happen more times than not if he is engaging to get his super. He relies on this pressure range increase as a result. Usually, brawlers that rely on this pressure range increase, such as Edgar and Daryl, have a way to charge their supers automatically, so they are not sitting ducks all game. However, prior to the tank trait, Primo didn't have that. Neither did Bull, or Jackie, or Frank, the other beneficiaries of the trait. For those of you who don't know, the tank trait is a trait that some tanks have that passively charges their super whenever they take damage. This essentially gives tanks the ability to charge their supers passively, while not giving up their lane pressure by staying in lane and soaking up damage. Sure, soaking up damage charges the enemy's super, but now it charges your own, too. Primo needed this. See, even though his attack was so weak and inconsistent, without the tank trait, he needed to physically get up towards the enemy brawler and hit them with a few attacks, then fall back, heal up, and super. Think about that scenario nowadays. Going towards the enemy, hitting them, and coming back is at least 6 bell shots. This is also while Bell is moving backwards and setting a trap that slows Primo down. 6 bell shots are very easy to hit onto Primo in this situation. Damage values have also been slowly creeping up throughout the game's history, a phenomenon known as damage inflation. For more information, check out the cult PowerPoint. It's very hard for Primo to compete with damage inflation because in order to succeed, he has to be able to dodge shots. And in competitive, dodging shots isn't enough because pros know how to hit shots consistently. So if Primo was forced to go into a melee range of the enemy and attack, he would die instantly. At least Bull and Jackie have consistent main attacks. Primo doesn't even have that. Passively charging super would therefore really help him, right? Let's compare this impact to the rest of the brawlers. As I said, Bull's main attack is very consistent, and his super is the inconsistent part. So while he does have a higher theoretical pressure range than Primo with super by virtue of a longer super range, he also doesn't benefit from it as much. Jackie and Frank also don't have super ranges that are much longer than their main attack ranges, and Jackie benefits from the ability to hit through walls. It's harder to justify the tank trait helping much on these brawlers, when going out of your way to take damage would just help the enemy brawler more than yourself when it comes to super gain and super effectiveness. If you're feeding a Gene as a Bull, sure you might get super, but the Gene getting super is much more threatening to the match as a whole. However, if you're feeding Gene as a Primo, your super is closer to being as game-threatening as the Gene's is, so it's more reasonable to justify doing that. So, in short, the tank trait affected Primo the most because his kit meant that passively gaining supers would let him enact his game plan in the first place and enact it well. It also affected him the most because he had, by far, the longest consistent increase in pressure range with super compared to without, which is why free supers buffed him so much. He was so broken, in fact, that they nerfed the tank trait's effectiveness across all brawlers. Primo still remained B tier, though, and to this day, Primo can survive in metas with heavy damage brawlers in the meta, because damage just helps him gain his super faster. Thanks for watching. Watch this video, or this playlist, or join the Discord server.